There is a photograph. In it, a woman is laughing. Her name was Lyudmila. She is wearing a yellow dress. She is holding a glass of lemonade in a park that still smells of apple blossoms. Behind her, just barely visible through the trees, the 4 cooling towers of reactor number 4 rise into a perfect April sky. The photograph was taken on April 25, 1986. 16 hours later, that sky would never be the same. But this story is not about the explosion itself. This story is about everything that happened before it. The coffee that was still warm, the children still asleep in their beds, the shift worker who kissed his wife goodbye and told her he'd be home by morning. This is the last night Pripyat ever felt ordinary, and you are about to live it, second by second, before the world found out what was buried inside those 16 hours of silence. Stay until the very end, because the last thing you hear, no one was supposed to survive to tell you. If you want these stories and the lives behind them to never be forgotten, consider subscribing. Your presence here keeps these memories alive. 11:47 p.m., April 25th, 1986. The smell of birch trees at night is something no one from Pripyat ever forgot. Sweet, faintly medicinal, carried on a wind that moved through windows left open in almost every apartment on Chernobyl Street. In the bedroom of apartment 14B, a child named Misha, 7 years old, gap-toothed, obsessed with cosmonauts, had left his school bag by the door, already packed for Monday. His mother, Oksana, 31 years old, a librarian, had folded his uniform the night before. She had ironed the collar twice. She stood in the kitchen now, heating milk she would not drink, listening to the hum of the city outside as though it were music she had memorized long ago. Pripyat, in the spring of 1986, was not a city you feared. It was a city you envied. Built from nothing in 1970, designed for the workers of the Lenin nuclear power plant. It was the Soviet Union's newest, cleanest, proudest model town. Average age, 26. 16 kindergartens. An amusement park with a brand new Ferris wheel, scheduled to open in 4 days, May the 1st, Labor Day. Children had been talking about it for weeks. The gondolas were painted yellow and red. They were still when the evacuation order came. No one ever rode them. 12:15 a.m., April 26, 1986. Volodymyr Pravik was 23 years old. He had been a firefighter for exactly 2 years. He was the kind of man who laughed at his own jokes before he finished telling them. His wife, Nadia, was 7 months pregnant. They had already chosen a name. If it was a girl, Natasha. If it was a boy, Sasha. He had written both names on a piece of paper, folded carefully, and placed inside his breast pocket. Shift change, 11:59 p.m. He kissed Nadia on the forehead, told her not to wait up, and stepped out into a night so still. Even the gravel beneath his boots sounded ceremonial. Inside Reactor 4, the night crew was preparing a safety test. It had been postponed 4 times. It was considered routine, low risk. Shift foreman Alexander Akimov, 33 years old, father of 2 daughters who studied ballet, kept their photograph clipped inside his locker. He planned to take them to the Kiev circus next week. He had already bought the tickets. He was thinking about that moment, about their faces, when the supervisor entered the room. 12:04 a.m. The test begins within the hour. 12:28 a.m., April 26, 1986. In the canteen of Reactor Building No. Bar 4, Leonid Toptunov, 26 years old, was finishing a cup of tea. It tasted like metal. It always did. He had been assigned to the night shift only 3 months earlier. He was still learning, still asking questions, still writing notes in the margins of his manuals, in red ink. The manuals were in his locker, the ink, still fresh on the last page he studied. A single line, underlined 3 times. The power must not fall below 700 megawatts, under normal conditions. If you can feel the weight of this moment, the silence, the ordinary rhythm of a night that believes it is safe, comment the word Pripyat. 12:51, a.m., April 26, 1986. On the 5th floor of the Hotel Policia, a journalist from Moscow, Gennady, 44, was finishing an article. A city from the future. He had been in Pripyat for 3 days. He had seen everything. The supermarkets, fully stocked. The restaurants, busy. The streets, clean. He had written in his journal, "I am genuinely happy to be here." He fell asleep at his desk, the typewriter still warm. The last line he wrote, "In Pripyat, the future has already arrived." He would not finish that article. He would not return home for 11 days. 1:07 a.m., April 26, 1986. Oksana had gone to bed. The window, still open. Somewhere, a radio played. A soft folk song. A river, a voice. She thought about the morning, her son's lunch, her work, a letter to her sister in Minsk. A wedding in 3 weeks. She had already chosen her dress. Blue, with small white flowers. It hung in the wardrobe. Perfect. She smiled and fell asleep within minutes. On the windowsill, Misha's small rubber cosmonaut faced the direction of the plant, its painted visor catching the last moonlight of a perfectly ordinary night. 1:19 a.m., April 26, 1986. Inside the control room, something was wrong. Power levels were dropping, not to 700, but far below, 200 megawatts. The instruments, unstable. Voices. Then silence. Leonid Toptonov stood at the controls. He followed procedure. He did exactly what he had been trained to do. He had been awake for 17 hours. And in that moment, his mind drifted, just for a second, to something small. He had promised to call his mother. Her birthday, May 3rd. The card was already written, sitting on his kitchen table, unstamped. 1:23 a.m., April 26, 1986. Volodymyr Pravik heard the alarm. He stood up immediately, put on his jacket, no hesitation, no fear. He did not reach for the paper in his pocket. He didn't need to. He knew the names by heart. Across the city, 50,000 people slept, or stood by their windows, or walked their dogs through soft April mud, or held their newborns in the quiet blue light of early morning. The amusement park, silent. The Ferris wheel, still. The apple blossoms, still sweet, still harmless. Or so it seemed. The city breathed. The reactor waited. And somewhere, a hand reached for the AZ5 button. The emergency shutdown. It was pressed. In less than 5 seconds, everything inside Reactor 4 would change forever. Inside the core, the graphite tips of the control rods began to descend. And then, the building groaned.